Hello, friends. Welcome to day 13, Mystic in Motion. So, if you read the prompts, I'm going to read them out loud. Walking with soul in the everyday. What does it feel like to walk as a mystic today? Walking meditation or visualization, step by step, breath by breath, fully alive. And the blessing words, each step is sacred. I carry soul into every day. I love this, right? I mean, it brings it down to such a applicable point, a working point. But I actually want to take a tangent on this, the mystic in motion, to shine a different light on what it means to be a mystic in motion. I'm going to read a couple quotes to shine a light on this. All right, some of these you know from me or somebody else, and others you may or may not know. So Alan Watts, the course of wisdom, what is really sensible, is to let go, to commit oneself. To give oneself up is quite mad. So we come to the strange conclusion that in madness lies sanity. And then along the same lines, we have Kabir. I see the world as mad. If I tell the truth, they rush to beat me. If I lie, they trust me. And here's a quote on inspired action, which is a mystic in motion, inspired action. It does not wait for perfection. It demands movement, urgency, and trust in yourself now. And it was that quote that actually inspired the tangent on this theme, even though I put the prompts in as going in a certain direction. Because I think many people wait for a level of clarity before they act that's simply not going to come. We want a certain amount of safety that what we're doing is okay or will be acceptable, or at least we're sure enough that no matter what happens, we feel sure. But inspired action actually demands a certain madness, a certain insanity. And the only way then that we can come from a place of solid conviction is to be really impelled by love. I mean, really impelled by love, which is what a mystic in motion is. And maybe doesn't feel it all the time, but on a fundamental is. I'll give you an example. So if you know Saint Scholastica, raise your hand if you know Saint Scholastica. So she was a lovely human being. Her twin brother was Saint Benedict. So you probably know Benedict more than you know Scholastica. And they were visiting. So a lot of times she would visit his monastery. Well, there came a time when he and some other brothers visited her monastery, and they were having an amazing conversation. It was so enlightening. And she didn't want the conversation to end. And here's this twin brother. She implored him to stay longer, to not go back to his monastery, but he wanted to. And if you read the story, one thing that's left out is that it was actually, I don't know how illegal, like I don't know if it was canonically illegal or just Benedictine rule illegal, but it was not legal for someone of the opposite sex to stay over at the monastery and stay with somebody of the opposite sex. So what she was asking for was actually not just inconvenient, not just going against what Benedict maybe wanted. Maybe he wanted to go home. It wasn't that. It's that she actually broke a rule. She broke a rule, impelled by love. And Benedict, who was rule following, at least in that moment, said, "Sister, I cannot do that. You know this. I must go back to my monastery." And she decided then to turn to God instead of turning to her brother. And the story goes that she began really imploring God that it work out that Benedict doesn't leave. And right after that, a massive storm comes through the area, and Benedict is actually stuck there with his brothers at the monastery. And Benedict, who is a little, at least the story goes, he's a little abhorred by what she did. He's like, "Sister, what have you done?" But he succumbs, and they stay up all night talking about the love of God. That's a mystic in motion. Audacity. Wow, right? Audacity. And where are you when you think about that? Do you calculate too much? Do you want to be right enough or want to have it right enough before you act? Where are you? Are you willing to be mad? Are you willing to actually lose yourself to gain yourself? You know, we've got that passage about the grain of wheat falling into the ground, that's the only way to come into new life. And it's so lovely to read it, and you get a resonance like, oh, yes, I'm giving everything, and I'm like that grain of wheat, and that's so lovely, right? But do you really want to go that far? Or is something within you still protecting? Is something within you still protecting? This is so juicy that I just have to keep writing down as these thoughts come. You know, Jesus gives great witness to this, right? I mean, he didn't follow rules unless the rules served what he believed he was doing in the name of God. I mean, that's the takeaway. He was confident he was united with God and he was doing the will of God. And in that, he was free. Isn't that something? And so anything that was a rule or a law that was in alignment with the will of God, he obeyed. And anything that wasn't, he didn't. As a mystic in motion, that's what you're called to. And where are you there? Because most of us have little tendrils. Most of us have a feeling or a belief or an unconscious impelling level of discernment that takes into account all of these things. But if you read the lives of mystics and saints and holy ones, you will find that in almost every culture, they were considered pretty crazy. I mean, before I was reflecting on Scholastica, Joan of Arc came up to me. I Googled, like, you know, who are mystics that broke rules? And among the top that were listed, Scholastica wasn't in this search, was Joan of Arc. Oh my gosh, she broke every freaking rule and was completely confident she was doing the will of God. Now, she may have had hesitation, right, or doubt or worry. She may have had suffering and the desire to be accepted. It doesn't mean when we step into being a mystic in motion that our hearts aren't going to get crushed or that we're not going to get exiled. I mean, when I was in 2007, as you all know, here I stepped out, 80% Catholic work, 20% non-denominational. And my ministry was transforming the Catholic lives before me in various levels on the spectrum. It wasn't like the Pentecost that everybody was getting slain in the Spirit, but there was so much good happening in my ministry. And I gave it my all. And what happened? My heart was crushed. I ended up getting banned in the church. Now, that won't necessarily happen because if you're aware of Catholic spheres, you've got people like Richard Rohr or Joan Chittister who seem to somehow stay within that construct, but still are exercising their freedom as mad mystics. So you can't really create it all. You can't. You can't just create the scenario that you want. You have to jump. You have to jump. I know I just keep, like, all of this is really, I guess some new call I'm getting is making me want to take notes on this. You can't control it. You can't be a mad mystic and control. It just is a complete contradiction. So in being a mystic in motion, and I know that these prompts that are given to you are really sweet, and they're really sweet, I really wanted to put a curveball in there and give you a bit of a challenge with yourself. How much of a mad mystic are you? And if you're not 100%, if you know you're not, why? What's going on? What's going on? What do you still take into account? Whose feelings don't you want to hurt? What ways don't you want your own feelings to get hurt? What ways do you feel like you're navigating a difficult situation when you really just need to stand up and say what you say? I'm not saying this as though this is easy. This takes everything we have. Everything. It takes everything we have, everything we are. So I'm not throwing it out there like you can flip a switch and all of a sudden be a mad mystic. But to be a mystic in motion is to be mad. What say you on this? I mean, it's provocative, right? But what seems to be at the heart of each of these mystics that gets exiled or scolded or killed because they're stepping into alignment with spirit, and there's a bit of madness in that. What seems to be at the heart of it is that they are inflamed with love, divine love. So you want that because that's going to be your safety. That's going to be your strength. The other ways you gain strength and sense of context and connection, they may all disappear. They may not. And if they don't, they'll up-level. They'll be richer and deeper and more true to your call. I invite you, before we do our short meditation, to just pause this recording. I'm going to turn it off for just a second and reflect on this and write down a few thoughts you have on this. You know, Jesus gives good testimony to this when he and his disciples are walking somewhere and they're hungry and it's Sabbath, but they all start, with Jesus' permission, gleaning the wheat off the stalks because they were hungry. And what happens is Jesus gets scolded for that. What are you doing? This is against the law on the Sabbath. And Jesus says something quite eloquent. The law is for humankind. Humankind is not for the law. It's where we get people like Gandhi that I touched on and we're reflecting on, and many others. They are able to discern what law is in accord with the alignment of its true purpose and what is not. And the ones that aren't, we have a moral obligation to disobey. Think about if everybody did that. Oh my gosh, right? This world would go through a bit of a messy time. But I think that we would come through the other side even more enriched in spirit. So pause the recording, take a moment, and reflect on yourself as a mad mystic. All right, so I'm actually going to use a rosary to do a Durga chant with you. So we've got feminine and feminine. Durga is considered to be the mother of the universe, the power at work like undergirding all creation and all aspects of creation. So Durga has lots of manifestations, but it's an overarching energy. And in a way, Durga is a mad energy, right? Because it would take total madness for the eternal one to want to come into form and have the messiness that we have. That's utter madness. So Durga really is madness, but it's a madness that's like a mystic. It's a madness, well, it's not like a mystic. Mystics are like Durga, that settles for nothing less but the fullness of creation coming alive. Durga. So all the other goddesses and deities really have a home or an expression from, they emerge from the large matrix, if you will. Durga is like a matrix. And what we're going to do is we're just simply going to chant this super simple chant like the other ones. Om, you're aware of that. Dum, the seed syllable for Durga. Durgaye, which is the expletive of Durga. Namaha, I bow to you. So it's one translation I'm reading, this one is Om and salutations to that feminine energy which protects from all manner of negative influences. So that's a somewhat limited way to speak about it, but by virtue of Durga being the force of all creation and creation being good, Durga is a force that moves through what might inhibit the fullness of creation coming alive. But it's not just about that. To gain the capacity to be a mad mystic, we want to ask for Durga's help. We need her help. We need its help. So I just invite you to join in with chanting this mantra as you're able. Closing your eyes and inviting in a breath. And continuing to inhale and exhale. And on the next inhale, draw in deeply. Open yourself to any ways you know you limit yourself to be mad as a mystic in motion. We're going to open to Durga, dissolving that. And exhale. And inhale. And begin. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. 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 And as we bring this meditation, this chanting to a close, lift up your left foot very lightly off the floor and put it down with deliberation. And your right foot up off the floor and down with deliberation. Left foot up and down with deliberation. Right foot up and down with deliberation. Make your choice now before opening your eyes to be a mystic in motion and to embrace the madness. When you're ready, open your eyes. Have a wonderful day.